We're joined now by the city archivist, Jeff O'Brien, and some may call him the Marty McFly or Doc from Back to the Future. It's somewhat significant in terms of looking forward to where Saskatoon's going to see where we've been. And Jeff, I want to thank you for coming in today and maybe enlightening us a little bit about what the Archives Department does versus the local history room, for example.
Well, okay, and that's a good question because people get the two mixed up all the time. The Archives, City Archives, is the archives of the Corporation of the City of Saskatoon. And
Sure.
so our collection is primarily records created by the city. So city council, city committees, the different departments. So we get minutes and agendas and reports and correspondence. If you write a letter to city council, it will end up in the archives where anybody can see it. So the archives are the permanent records of the city of Saskatoon. And the collection goes back to 1902. It's our oldest records, which is a receipt, I might add, for a shovel. In 1902, the City Public Works Department was a man, and he had a shovel. And when there was a pothole or a drainage problem, he would take his shovel and he would go fix it. So anyway, we have that receipt. Because we had to buy the shovel, of course.
Yep.
Anyway, so the library, of course, is part of the civic administration as well. But the local history room is historical. It's a special library, a special collection of historical material held by the library. And it's on the second floor of the main library downtown, and it is a fantastic historical resource. Most of their collection is reference material and photographs, but the local history room has the best photograph collection in the city of Saskatoon. And I hate to have to admit that. Now, the city archives, which I'm the city archivist, so it's my shop.
You're
anyway,
important.
the city archives has a photograph collection, and we have stuff mostly related to the city. We do have non-city records, but we don't normally go out and chase community records. The library does most of that.
Right.
So the two are very closely related, and we bounce customers back and forth all the time because people's research interests overlap. But mostly we're the archives of the city of Saskatoon, and the library has an important community history collection.
Can we get some idea about where we used to be in this city in terms of some of the maps and schematics that you might have in your tickle truck
As it
down
happens,
here?
yes, I have brought a couple of things. So this little item here is a copy of the original survey map of the Saskatoon Temperance Colony town site, which of course you're going to recognize as being present-day Nutana. When the temperance colonists came through here in 1882, they needed to locate a town site in the middle of the colony, and after a period of investigating and a little bit of consulting with Chief Whitecap downriver, they eventually chose what's now Nutana. And of course, the great thing about it is Broadway Avenue is the center, it's the center road of Nutana, right, of the old Temperance Colony.
Yep.
And that's where all the colonists were. Broadway, you stand at Broadway, Maine, you're right in the heart of Temperance Town, Saskatchewan. But the Temperance Colony was dedicated to the idea that there would be no alcohol. You weren't allowed to have booze in Saskatoon in 1882. So the great irony of it is that today, if you walk down Broadway, there is bars everywhere you turn. So that just shows how things change. So this is the original settlement to Saskatoon. But
was it called Nutana?
no, it was called Saskatoon.
Okay.
Yep. The name, the reason it's called Nutana is because in 1901, the village of Saskatoon was incorporated. Saskatoon got a post office, they incorporated as a village, but the part that incorporated wasn't Nutana, wasn't the original Temperance Colony. Oh no, it was across the river here in what's now the downtown, which wasn't even settled until 1890. So the people in Nutana were a little bit upset about having their good name stolen by those Johnny-come-latelys across the river. So, speaking of across the river, I have this little map here from 1908, and this is, this is Victoria Park, and you can see there's the river there, and there's the old railway station line that used to run down 17th Street. They took that out about 2001. But here on the map, they show the remains of the old Bone Trail. Before we had railroads, we had trails, and the Bone Trail headed southwest out towards Vanscoy and Delisle, places like that. But it was a route that the bone traders used to take on their way into Saskatoon. They would collect buffalo bones and bring them into Saskatoon across the trails, and then they'd ship them out of here by rail down to fertilizer plants, usually in the States, and they grind them up and resell them as fertilizer. So that's pretty cool. And of course, nowadays, that's all Victoria Park.
Right.
Now, what else do I have? Let's see. I brought a copy of the exhibition Harvest edition of the Saskatoon Phoenix, dated August 1914. In August of 1914, the First World War had just started. They didn't even call it the First World War then. That's how long ago this was. In fact, in August of 1914, they thought that the First World War would end about Christmas time. The English said to Canada, they said, oh, you guys shouldn't even bother enlisting. We'll have this all wrapped up by Christmas. Of course, they were quite wrong. But anyway, they didn't know that when they were putting together the Harvest edition. This is a wonderful piece. Saskatoon in 1914 was just coming off a huge real estate and financial boom. I mean, Saskatoon exploded. In 1911, there were 12,000 people in Saskatoon. In 1912, there were 28,000 people here. Can you imagine if there were 500,000 people here next year? That's what it would have been like. And in 1914, of course, 1914, the boom was done. But you know history, right? You don't recognize it when you're in the middle of it. And so in 1914, they didn't know the boom was done. So they were acting as if they were still booming. And so this piece here has got all this bits about important people in Saskatoon and important businesses and how what a wonderful growing place Saskatoon was. And of course, by 1915, we were in the middle of a huge economic tailspin, which just shows that history can...
How fast that can happen.
Yeah, history can pull nasty tricks on you. But a lot of what we know about Saskatoon in the years just before the First World War comes from sources exactly like this. You know, are people talking about the big men and the big businesses and all the exciting things happening.
All that money coming in to develop the city at that time.
All that money coming in. Well, that's the thing. And that's what fueled the boom, was all that money coming in. And then one day in 1913, the money stopped coming in. And I'll show you here. I've got something here you'll like, because that's all about that. This is a set of aerial photos. I have two here. This is the first one. Let me get this down. Okay, here we go. So this is a shot of Saskatoon. It's taken in 1927. It's the oldest aerial photo of the city. We have the whole set at the city archives. Beautiful set of aerial photos. Anyway, and you can see that this is Clarence and this is Taylor. Or sorry, this is 8th. And the city ends at the corner of Clarence and 8th. You know, in Owls in the Attic, Farley Mowat talked about traveling, you know, walking around through the poplar bluffs and the sloughs and the prairie just outside of Saskatoon. This is what he's talking about. There's a lot of this area here. Saskatoon was hugely rural and hugely undeveloped. You can see there's houses and stuff down here in the southeast, but they are very sparse and very well separated, and there's very few actual roads. Although, if you went to the land titles office, you would find maps that show this area to be totally subdivided and surveyed, and roads and lots and back alleys and all the rest of it. They just don't show up in real life. In real life, you can stand here at the corner of Taylor and York and be on the corner of Taylor and York, but all you would see is prairie on every side.
All around it.
Now, at the corner of Taylor and York, of course, as everybody knows, are the Three Sisters. And that's, well, there's only two now. But there used to be three of them, and there were three big old houses that were built in 1912 by a real estate developer who was trying to generate a little buzz about his property. Because in 1912, Taylor and York was a long way from anywhere else, and no one lived there. And so this guy builds these three houses, trying to get people to think, oh, it's something going on here. I'm going to buy some property out there so we make some money. So somebody else, you see down here, there's these little squares. Somebody else got a crew together and they started building rows of small houses, and they poured a whole bunch of basement foundations, one after another, along where the streets were supposed to have been. But you know what happens to booms is they bust. And so about 1913, the boom busted, and it's as if they said to the guys, put away your tools, boys, you're not paying us, we're going home. And they stopped work. And for decades, those basement foundations sat open to the sky. And people that grew up in that neighborhood in the 40s and 50s remember playing in those areas, and because there's good pictures that show these foundations, and they're just surrounded by tall grass and weeds, and way off in the distance there's, Saskatoon. Now nowadays that's all 50s and 60s housing, Aidan-Bowman Collegiate's out there, but sticking up in the middle of it are the remaining two of the Three Sisters, like this ancient memorial.
Right behind the fire hall now.
Right behind the fire hall, exactly. So I like to say that this is the place where boom met bust, where optimism met reality, where hope met despair. Anyway, that's all.
And we have a minute left to do the urban agriculture, I think that you talked about.
We cannot skip urban agriculture. Yeah. This is in the exhibition area of Saskatoon, so there's the exhibition. This is a railway track, but nowadays, of course, that's Idlewild Freeway, but you'll see that this is all agriculture. I mean, not just agriculture, but clearly commercial agriculture. And this is well within city limits. This area wasn't developed till the 1950s. Built houses as Queen Elizabeth or Avalon or whatever. But in 1927, it's all agriculture. And in here, there's market gardens and greenhouses, and people talk about urban agriculture today as if it's some new thing, that's some new great idea. We should grow gardens in our cities.
What's old is new again.
But we've been growing gardens in our cities for 150 years.
Yep.
So.
Well, I think it's wonderful. I can't say enough about the appreciation that many of us have for the work that you do, and the broad depth of knowledge that you bring to your role. And I have to thank you for all your years of service here. You're not going anywhere, but
no.
This is just a real treat. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing that story with us, and wish you well with the Archives Week. I'd also like to thank Jason Yoakum, the CEO for the Saskatoon Region Association of Realtors. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Connect.
Connect with us and let us know your thoughts about the topics discussed today or any future story ideas. Tweet Shaw TV Connect, find us on Facebook, email shawtvconnect@shaw.ca, or call us at 306-665-3796.